And let me introduce a new presenter. This is Oliver Meyer, and the title is Big Data Analysis, a component resource to be considered in TRIZ. Oliver, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Hello, everybody, for this presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. I assume you can see it?
Yes.
So big data in TRIZ as a field, as a topic. So this is not really new. I went for this idea, or let's say a little bit of history, just coming from where I'm starting. I'm currently working for a company, Bayern Innovativ, and I'm very much dealing with small and medium-sized companies, introducing their TRIZ, applying with them where it has to be fast and easy, and has to show results right away. And one of the topics where I'm currently facing more and more is always a question on in TRIZ function analysis when we do it. We have today big data, we have artificial intelligence, AI, we have deep learning and all these kind of stuff. How do I model it in that area? And Oleg Fagenson yesterday in his talk also mentions the fact of how to handle today's data. This is a change. This was from the beginning not existing in Altschuler's TRIZ world, big data as such. And therefore, what we have is a point that if I'm looking at the definition of components that stipulated there, a component is an element of a technical system or a supersystem that interacts with a technical system. Point. What are allowed? Components and elements, that's what we are learning. Elements have a rest mass, chair, screw, drills, wherever I have a mass, but we have also fields in there. Not the physical fields. Okay, there are only 4, maybe some say in the meantime only 3, but we're talking about technical fields where we say magnetic field, adhesion field, thermal field, and so on, whatever shall be there. And explicitly it says not permitted are components are software and parameters, because parameters specify the special stages of a field or a component, but as well software. But if we're looking today at all our technologies, they're more and more driven by software. So how can we bring this element into a function analysis? So if we're looking at the picture down here, we have usually the function carrier down here, and their allocated parameters, which I'm in a function analysis always writing here the function carrier and the allocated parameter, and he does an action on the object of the function, well known also with parameters. So that's where we are. So up to now, what we did, we said, okay, what is software? Software, in a way, consists of 2 parts. First of all, it consists of data that is included in the software, and it consists of an algorithm in there. And if you're looking at how computers work today as a Naumann machine, there's the algorithm, the part of a command, which tells you what to do in the next step with the data. And out of that, you're running a process down there on usually a processing unit, which is, again, a hardware part. So up to now, there's a way to, let's say, circumvent this fact that software is not said to be an explicit component. Well, you allocated it as a parameter of the processing unit. And by this, you could model it and have, again, object of the function. Of course, I know that a computer has lots of functions and not only one, but simplified, put like this. So that was a way on how we went around this part of software being not a component. Still, fact is that in that area, the data usually that we have in a software, this is a static program, so it does not change. It is like it is also with where it gets data from, so quite static, and that worked and was successful. But today we're getting one step ahead. That is that software is getting more complex, and that we start to spread the processing unit from the software being set in a way that if we're running for artificial intelligence, this processing unit and its software are changing themselves over time and over time. It's not static anymore. It's not to be seen as a parameter anymore. I have in my in a previous talk, it was I think 2 years ago, suggested to think about big data also as a resource. This was rejected from the community and said, no, this is not a resource. We cannot treat it like this. That's why I looked at how can I maybe use it in function analysis. And I want today, again, make a proposal and which I put up to discussion. I don't say this is the solution itself, but I want to drive the community into thinking, how shall we deal with software and data lakes and these kind of stuff in our modeling, and how can we handle this, that we keep up the function analysis as a valuable tool in this area. Because more and more, as I said, I see these questions, and all the time when I say, okay, software is not allowed as components, I say, okay, how can we model this? And it is important. So what we see today is the fact that we don't have any more fixed data or coming in a static way, but that often we have data from processes, data from other processes, several one, which are added in a data lake, meaning they're just collected, a whole bunch of data sets in there in a certain way structured, maybe or maybe not, can be in different areas. And this data here, it is standing on its own in a database. So it doesn't do first of all anything. It only turns into action when you say, I take this data and implement them in an algorithm or use them by an algorithm, here by a processing unit. Or if I said, this could become here an artificial intelligence, which continuously uses its data and on its own changes this data again. So the question is, or the proposal better said, is that we take the data lake, big data, or also artificial intelligence algorithms as a field, because they have no mass, but they have an impact, a very massive impact on the system, and work on them. So to define them as a technical field, as it would be a heat field, an acoustic field, or whatever. This is also without mass, but has a direct impact to that part. So, and I'm already through. I would like here to start a discussion also. I have here one example. This is the hand of my son. He has a prosthesis, and there, starting point was to have a system, a function, like we have it here on the left side. We have muscle sensors. This triggers a controller, and this controller has here some parameter, for example, maximum force or whatever, fixed values which are in there. And then this controller drives the power electronics. This drives the motor. The motor generates an electromagnetic counter voltage, which goes to the controller again, so that you get an information about the force. By this can be controlled. And the motor, of course, moves the fingers. Fingers break the motors, and also fingers press the bottle, and the bottle breaks the fingers. And also the information is given where the finger stands. So this was, let's say, conventional way of working with such a system, where I don't have the algorithm or something like this in there. It is just implemented in the controller fixed program. If we're looking now at where this developed, and we drove this, of course I did it not my own, but I was driving a little bit with the company making the prosthesis, where we said, in the change here, we have now information, lots of information that are gathered in a data lake, in a database, if you want. And this data lake as a field, which is changing, is continuously updated, serves into a KI module. KI is German for künstliche Intelligenz, which is artificial intelligence. In English, AI, usually AI in German is used as analog intelligence. So that's what our brain is doing. So therefore you have here the KI module. And this, in this case, I suggest that we think about using these parts as field that then can change here and impact the controller in order to model the whole stuff. That's what I'm just putting to proposal very shortly. And the summary, if you want, and I would be happy to start really here into a discussion, is software is becoming increasingly important technology. More and more is driven by software, and especially artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. Software is changing its characteristic from being a static algorithm to changing its own data parameter by itself. And so far, we have used it as a parameter of a functional processing unit of a hardware. So this is changing. And yeah, that's where I think we need to find a different way to do with software in TRIZ. And first one is to use it as a field. I made some good experience in doing so, and realized also some interesting findings and solutions to do so. But I think we need to overcome this rule that software is not allowed as a component. And I would be happy to get, in a way, your opinion about this thinking. Hoppla. What happened now?
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver.
Very short, I know.
It's been short, but it's more a call for a discussion.
Yes.
As I realize, so we still have a crowd here. So, anyone, any ideas, any questions? Maybe you can use your microphones.
Can you hear me? This is Horst speaking.
We do.
That's great. Thank you, Oliver. It is a great presentation, I think, and a very important discussion nowadays, what to do with software and data and all this new stuff. One thing that went through my mind was sparked by your function model. I don't see necessarily a problem with software or how to include software, because you use the data lake as a component and you suggest to take it as a field, if I get this correctly. I was thinking, isn't the data lake just also a computer with lots of memory, lots of hard drives that stores the information? And the discussion is mainly about, isn't the transfer of information from the data lake to the AI module, which is again some processors running an algorithm, and the information itself might be a field, not necessarily software. I don't see the need actually to talk about software in these cases. But thank you for clarifying that we have both, that we have algorithm and data, and this is very important, I guess. Thank you.
Yes, I have to admit I mixed it here a little bit, because I don't have a final solution where I say this is the way we should do it. Basta. I'm just searching here also. I found that with the fact of this data, big data coming up, seeing data as such. And the point is that the data itself has no meaning anymore. Only in the combination of the data, you get a meaning. If I'm taking a picture and I'm doing lots of pixels of you, let's say 1,000 pixels, and I get only as a value the brightness. The brightness of one pixel doesn't tell me anything. But if I'm adding them, these pixels, these data points in a certain way, then suddenly I'm getting a picture of you. And then it starts to make sense. So how to bring this together, and the structuring of the data then is again then an algorithm who's doing that. And if we're thinking then of artificial intelligence, this algorithm is continually changing, because with each data processing, it's changing its internal parameter of the neural network. So how to handle this? And therefore, I was thinking to bring this into as a field, because there's nothing tangible, it's nothing with a mass. And by this, to be able to stay also along with the rules of TRIZ. I don't want to to spread here the rules and say TRIZ is wrong. No, I want to try to find a method to include this based upon the rules that we have in TRIZ. And for example, Simon de Wolf in All Life is trying to do this as well with his data analysis of patterns with TRIZ going in a similar direction. So yes, I would like to just hear comments to be able to go there along and further and find my way. So a different kind of research, not saying I made research, but I want the community to do the research and to drive it to think about this.
Yeah, pretty clear. Several times you mentioned, Oliver, that software is not allowed to be taken by a component as a component. Why, in whom it's not allowed?
Well, this is according to the definitions that were given by Altschuler.
Excuse me? Altschuler and software?
By Matriz, I would say, sorry.
Sorry,
Matriz,
yeah.
sorry, I'm
Matriz,
vice president of Matriz, I'm sorry, not. There are no such, no, if you look at the 1991 status of description of function analysis, which has been done, there is no any ban on software because there were no software considered at that time.
Okay, I was always
But
taught that.
actually, I'm sorry to interrupt because this is again a point for us as teachers of TRIZ and making these certification teachings. This is actually something that we got hammered into our heads that software is not allowed as a component. So
this was
maybe this should be updated, but then it should be communicated to the community of TRIZ teachers.
Is it in this book, you know, the book published by Navismo, level 1? Is there any ban on the software and the function analysis?
I will have to look, but it's in all the material.
I can assume that this is banned by maybe Sergei Kovenko. I don't know if Sergei is with us.
You know, this is the problem. How should we, as teachers who learned this thing some time ago, decide whom to believe and whom to not believe if we get a certification training? I mean, it's the same with the topic of inform and being informed, you know.
But I think there's an underlying issue there, which is that the Matriz organization came to a common denominator for all the teachings they have. And that's, I think, the lowest common denominator, and it's quite old. So how do you update that? Well, I think that's the underlying question. And there's not been many updates in the past, and there are some tools which definitely show their age.
Christoph, I might assure you, there's been hundreds of updates, especially in Russian language, you know, which were never went to English and other languages. Because why? Because you might think yourself, why not? I guess you know the answer.
I think there are some fundamental questions, and those haven't been tackled. Software is one of them.
Yes.
If you look at the 76 standards, they also show their age. What's happening there?
But you remember back in 2 years ago in Heilbronn, I presented a paper on extension of function analysis to technical and non-technical areas. I don't know if you've seen this paper. It's you can find it on the internet.
I liked it, yeah.
Yes. So then I discussed with guys who deliver function analysis and who originated this, and they say, "Oh, that's okay, and that's it. That's over. Nothing's being done because we don't have mechanism in Matriz how to incorporate latest developments into our curriculum. We don't have that mechanism."
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly, Christoph. You're right. And let's put it at this moment as a next step, which we should bring to the board of Matriz and discuss. But right now, I think that makes no sense. I would like to go back to Oliver's presentation and move to it because
let's put it this way. If we get to the consciousness that we have to discuss this in the board and to do something about, then this presentation was already for me a success, right? Because yeah, we have to think about things like these and the uncertainties, because I recall lots of discussions where I was told, no, software is not allowed. Be it as it is, if you're telling me we don't see a problem, and I remember your discussion where we had this point with a waiter and how he's informed or not, and what is the reaction, all this kind of stuff. I said, hey, that's cool, because that's exactly what's happening in reality and not in the static part. And yeah, I was always thinking, how does it develop further? So yes, thank you for the statement that we should think about how to incorporate latest developments and bring this to back to the connectivity in the organization on the same level. That's
because right now we use a version of function analysis which was a really bright and still bright tool, but it was developed in the beginning of 80s. It's been 40 years old. Yep. And now each time when I again see this example with a painting bath, I'm going to kill someone, because how 40 years, it's incredible, right? So
that's great to have this discussion, and I strongly agree with Oliver. And I would like to add, from a trainer's perspective, what I want to avoid at this is that any student that we trained get told by someone that they learned rubbish from us, you know?
And that's why I have two versions of training. You see that I'm not a member of CEM any longer. And this is why, because I do not want to teach old stuff. So anybody who wants to go for TRIZ certification, I teach old stuff. Anybody who wants to go upgrade it goes for TDIC stuff, whatever it is. So we should give our, let's say, customers choice. Yeah, that's it. But we, at the same time, must do something to do upgrades within TRIZ as well. And it's sort of my responsibility. I'm vice president on development of TRIZ. That's why I bring this issue. Hopefully, it will be solved.
Can I jump in for a second? It's Oleg.
Yes, please, Oleg.
I believe the problem is in the, let's say, very, very old definition of what component is. It's a material object.
True.
But Oliver, and I truly believe, I personally believe that software could be decomposed into its own components, non-material, but components that performs its own functions for data, for between the software components also there is some interactions, functions. Yeah. But Oliver, it's a nice, what you proposed, it's a nice workaround this issue, I would say. But if, let's say, imagine we solved this problem and somehow software or change the definition of a component and allowed the component to be non-material. Do you think it will solve the problem, and your approach in considering software as a field, software and the data as a field, will be not needed, or it still has some benefits?
I would say, yes, it serves some benefits. Let's say the starting point for me was that I was told from different areas, software, no, it's not. And I see that has a big impact, and that the world is moving more and more in terms of trend to a field. Yeah? Yeah. If you want the software and data controlling that part. I found now to use this as a field is a workaround that works pretty well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So putting it there, I can model this with big data, with normal data or whatever as a field. And this was just to, let's say, circumvent the contradiction of not being allowed. Yeah. And I brought this up in a, I know, provocative way, but I learned also a little bit at TRIZ and TRIZfest. If you are not provocative, usually nothing happens. So if we are concluding that we should discuss this within the TRIZ community on how to handle questions like these or others, as Horst met, and brings this into the teaching. I am happy with the result, what I've here, because now I can go to the board and say, listen, we had this discussion, and this was not only my idea, but there are several people who said, yeah, we should talk about this, whatever the outcome will be.
I think that the biggest mistake here is that there is an assumption, for whatever reason, that the software is not material component. Yes, by the law, by the rules, you must have the component must be material. But software is material component because software does to the data the same as the saw does to wood. Exactly the same, guys.
Yes, yes.
My opinion is the same.
Yeah.
But you know, if we have in the material standing then this might turn into a problem. And
software is much more material than a field, actually. Yes, yes.
It makes hardware work. It's definitely material. But
okay.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
When you consider software as a field, so it's could be included into the subfield analysis, right?
Yeah.
In this case, do you think that all the standards, inventive standards, will be valid if you include software as a field?
Let's put it this way. Yes, they are valid in my view. The point is that there would be some missing. That, let's say, the field is changing itself.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So to say, okay, I add something, I change something in the data. Let's put it this way: you have data from everywhere. They're not structured. They are not broad. Usually, when you want to use lots of data, you have to see that they're consistent, that they are working, that they're properly related in the database. You cannot just use any data from any sort. This will not work. So by this, you can apply these 76 standard solutions, because you change them, you add something,
you transform
filters,
structure.
you transform them. But there's some, in my view, missing where it says the data transforms itself, which is then happening by artificial intelligence or things like that. So there might then some be missing.
Oliver, may I make a different suggestion here?
Yeah.
Just listening to everything that has been said, I think we can agree that software and data in itself could be modeled like a function, like a function model. However, to some extent, it's in a parallel world. And I think that if you, just as a suggestion, you may have a function modeling just the same way for software. And then you have to define the interaction between the software world and the hardware world, where the hardware world is our existing function model. Just as what comes to my mind at the moment.
Right.
Christoph, I'm happy. That's what I want to achieve with this discussing all together about it, not only one person. Good idea. I will try it out, yeah, and give you feedback.
That would be nice.
The same way we did it last time.
We can finally have a
lamp,
small,
right? It was a lamp and the water heater.
actually, we can have a sort of a small working unit group, right? Busy with this topic. Why not? Let's organize it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
Thank you.